discontentment that comes up all the way to termination, whether that be voluntary or involuntary. And then dealing with organizational changes along the way, dealing with policy changes, and everything in between.
Okay. So you do a little bit of everything. Okay. Sounds like, and you work remotely, I'm assuming, in Spokane?
So partially hybrid right now. I oversee 2 locations, one here in Spokane and then one
Okay.
in North Carolina.
Okay. Okay. Do you get involved in recruiting at all? Do you get involved in any of that aspect of HR?
Yeah, I do. A lot of it.
Okay. Probably your most fun part, right? Affecting your job.
Yeah.
It's tough job. It's tough job. Um, so then you were with Lowe's prior to Jeld-Wen, and did you work with them in North Carolina, or where were you stationed? Where are you with Lowe's?
Yeah, so that's kind of how I got my career started in HR. So I started as an HR coordinator in Moses Lake, Washington, which is like an hour and a half from here. It's a little desert town. And
Okay.
from there, I got promoted to an HR manager, and so they moved me to Helena, Montana. And then I was there for a while, and then they promoted me to Clackamas, Oregon, and then to Portland, Oregon. And then my husband and I relocated back to Spokane. So then I was with Edge Construction Supply for a while, and then Jeld-Wen.
Oh wow. Okay. So you've done a little bit of so you're it's hard to get out of the industry once you're in the industry, that's for sure. The building materials industry.
True.
So,
They hook
um,
you.
so actually, which brings you another question. I mean, what do you like about the building materials industry?
Yeah, it's definitely, it's an ever-changing world. So as with many industries, but this brings its unique challenges along the way. Finding people that obviously want to be a part of that industry and know the industry. When you get into more specialized areas, especially with certain companies I've been a part of, it's very hard to find knowledgeable people. And then across the board, it's hard to find, quality talent nowadays. So it makes the hiring process a lot more difficult, recruiting process a lot more
Sure it
difficult.
does.
And yeah.
So how do you find quality talent? What are your methods to doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think looking at every position obviously requires special needs. So if you're not finding the talent just by searching online, if whether you're looking for candidates yourself or allowing them to apply, after that it's kind of home growing your own talent. So it's kind of a beautiful thing in today's world, because not only are we able to train somebody and develop them exactly, for the right needs for this position, but it also helps them to be as successful as possible. So I kind of like to think that homegrown is best grown.
Sure. Okay. So, because I would imagine you're looking for sometimes entry level people to work in some of the big box stores. I would think, Home Depot, Lowe's, and then you're looking for seasoned people. But I'm talking sales wise. But I don't know if you do get involved with the manufacturing plants as well. Do you get involved with operations? You do all those types of searches?
Yeah, yeah. So manufacturing, Jeld-Wen is part of manufacturing. So they are big in making, doors and windows. So you're also finding people in that industry alone, just who are physically capable, who can speak the language, who can understand, what's going on. There's so much more to making a window and a door than I ever thought possible till I got into it.
Pretty involved.
You got to, yeah, especially minute measurements have to be correct, and being able to utilize computers and different sort of systems. It's a whole gamut of different things that you would never think possible. When I was with Edge Construction Supply, I didn't realize they're a very niche part of the market. So you really have to have a lot of background and kind of almost grown up or really immerse yourself in the construction industry to be able to either sell the products or solutions that they offer, or to, even be able to understand the company as a whole. Another one that I didn't realize till I got into it and had to learn a lot.
Sure. Oh, I bet. And so I would imagine over the past couple of years, especially since COVID, there's been a lot of changes as far as hiring processes, what people are willing to do, what people aren't willing to do. So talk to me about some of the challenges you've had over the past couple of years.
Yeah. So COVID's a big one that comes to mind. We obviously COVID hit at a time and where nobody was expecting. I would say with COVID, navigating through something where there's no playbook on, something that no one has any idea really what it is, how dangerous it is for employees, and figuring out the right way to pilot this was unnerving and frankly scary.
Sure.
Not only did I have to think about the health of the employees, I had to think about potential layoffs, contamination procedures, creating new policies centered around COVID that had to abide by multi-state regulations, and then learning how to run a business within a state of emergency, all while trying to comfort employees in times of distress. So it was a lot, but we got through it. But that was definitely a unique one that never thought I'd have to deal with.
Yeah, none of us did.
As with
crazy.
Right. I mean, and we all made it through the other side for the most part.
Yeah, yes, we did.
And I guess another one that comes to mind would be having to endure, this throughout my whole career, but has gotten progressively worse within the last few years, is what we touched on a little bit earlier, finding reliable, competent talent. So we've just seen statistically a dramatic drop in the number of applicants we've received for a position. And then of those applicants, the qualifications for the applicants have declined. So
yeah, it's funny you say that, because I see the same thing.
Yeah. So how have you had to navigate through that?
Well, most of the positions that we do here are mostly in the sales work, in sales, technical things. We don't get much in the operations. But even on the sales side, one thing I get all the time is, I get this every day. You probably get the same thing. I want to work remote. I want to work out of my house. People got too comfortable working out of their house. Now in sales, of course, in the building materials industry, you do work out of your house, but you need to be on the road every single day. People don't want to leave the house. And I always tell a candidate, I said, you realize this is a sales position, right? And I said, you realize your competitor is seeing your customers face to face. You realize that, right? I said, so you need to be out in the field. But to answer your question too, how do I get around? Well, so first of all, how do I get around that? I pretty much talk bluntly to them. Hey, listen, if you want a remote position, this is not for you. But how do I find other candidates? Going outside the box a little bit. You're going outside the box. I worked for a major manufacturer within the industry, and I came from the communications world, prior to doing it, and I was very successful at it. So I've been very big over the past 17 years going outside of the industry, and that a whole bunch outside, but maybe to some companies who do touch it, like paint companies or electric companies, or some people like that. And I found as long as somebody has the aptitude for the business, they usually can convert pretty well. Okay. And that's what I've done.
Would definitely.
It means, do you do the same stuff, or?
Yeah, so especially in sales, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I remember working for Edge Construction Supply, and I thought, just hiring salespeople. It was, it didn't matter as long as they had sales experience. No, they have to have experience in the industry, and they have to be willing to go out and meet the customer face to face. And that was one of the things that kept Edge, above their competitors, was their willingness to be in front of the customer on a regular basis, willing to travel to make those, those visits, being able to be around the customer and understand their products and what their needs are. And it makes a big difference. And
makes a huge difference.
Everybody wants to work out of their home now.
But it's just it's since COVID, every home, and companies are starting to steer away from that more now. But still, some people not want to be home. And are you productive at home? I think you are productive at home, but in a sales role, you need to be in front of a client. You need to be in front of a customer. That's for sure. That's 100% sure.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest hurdle. Actually, it's a hurdle. Something I hear every day, but those candidates aren't good candidates. If somebody's asking me for that, they're not good candidates. You need to be out there. And so that makes it a little bit easier for me when somebody asks that. So.
Oh yeah, red flag right there.
Yeah, red right there.
And it's tough, but it's part of the job.
It's part of the job, and it's fun. I mean, I hear it every day. I mean, I heard it already today. Every day I hear it. I want to be home 2 days a week, or I want to be. You can't. You're in a sales role. You know,
No.
well, how often do I have to be
Right.
out? I said, well, when I was in a sales role, outside sales role, I was out at, from 7:30 in the morning to 6 o'clock at night. So that's sometimes you got to do that. Yeah. Oh, well, so it's
Yeah.
it's a different world today. So the challenges that you must face, I do in sales roles, but I have a lot of clients who, just like have operations just like you do, and they're telling me that just getting people in operations has been very, very, very tough. Getting people
Oh,
who
it's
want to do some
brutal.
of that stuff.
Right. And then you've got the people, so say you can't fill these positions, that brings up a whole different hurdle that you have to deal with. The people that you do have on board and value are, they have this strain, because they're having to do extra work to keep up with all of
Sure.
the demands of the company. And, I was a part of a company who I had to cover 4 positions because the company was in such a financial hardship that they put a hiring freeze on the majority of their positions due to lack of sales. And, the company was in the red, so they were trying to recover, but they couldn't downsize the workload either. So it made it very stressful. And, I'm sure you've seen that. I think every company is experiencing that now, where their employees have more demands on them than they ever have. And it's just kind of the world we live in today, unfortunately.
Sure. 100%. Now, how do you deal with the hiring manager saying, "Hey, have you found somebody?" And then also, how do you deal with a hiring manager who needs somebody who never returns your call or emails once you find some decent candidates? 'Cause- So, so I'm sure both
You
happen to you
know,
every day.
oh, sure. I mean, everybody gets busy, and I definitely can think of one company where, that was a little bit more of an issue. And so getting them to understand that we can work our tails off, but we don't do magic. So they've got to be a part of the process as well. And they've got to be able to be available either for interviews, or they've got to be available to help with the process. Maybe it's, needing to understand what their needs are, so that when we're vetting applications, we're knowing exactly what to look for. But also having very candid conversations that if you're not a part of the process, you can't expect a positive outcome.
Sure.
And having that candid conversation sometimes will help them understand, like, okay, I need to be a part of this, or it's going to take a while and they're not going to get what they want.
Yeah. Totally understand that, because it's one of the biggest challenges I have too, is when you find people and also the hiring authorities just don't get back to you. Why? I understand hiring people is a very tough part of the job. And I agree with this. Especially a sales manager would rather be out selling in front of customers, but you need to get some good people, and you probably are also seeing this today too. The good people don't last long today.
Oh my gosh, more than ever, we have people that, jump jobs. And so it's tough because you almost, you have to try and invest in them to get them to stay. But a lot of times the investment is temporary. And
Right.
that's hard in itself, because then you're hiring more than you ever have, as more than
Sure.
anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's too, when you find a good candidate too, they're usually talking to more than one person, and and it depends on the company. Sometimes they act quickly, so I like to try to tell hiring authorities, hey, listen, you got to move on this pretty quickly, because there's a good candidate, and they're not going to last. So I get,
Oh, it's so
get that,
true.
and it's so different than it was years ago. It's so different.
Yeah. Well, and then you have the whole, if you've got a good candidate, can you be competitive compensation wise? I
Hmm.
think that's harder than ever for companies as well. So not only are they struggling to find candidates, but then if they do get a good one, can they even afford the candidate?
Great, that's a great point, because it's just funny you say that, because I've seen more this year. Compensation levels have really gone up. There's certain companies that I pull from, that I've done really well taking people from, putting them other places from, and where the compensation is going to be at. Over the past 6 months, the numbers I'm getting are, whoa, that's crazy. All of a sudden they're starting to pay the people a lot more, and which I guess is fine. Okay, but but my clients, and same thing with you, have to stay on top of that, because if you want the good people, you got to pay for them. You get what you pay for. Bottom line. But I'm seeing that a lot now. I mean, so I'm assuming you're seeing the same thing. But salaries just keep going up.
Oh, it's crazy. Well, and it's tough too, because then, if you're paying somebody new coming in dramatically more, are you compensating the people that have been there?
That's the
And can
problem.
you afford
Yeah,
to do that?
that's the problem. That's the
And
other
you see
problem.
this gap, I feel like, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, no, I was listening to you. No, you're dead on because I hear that all the time too. It's how can I pay him or her more when I've got this person making X, and you hear that all the time, and it's true. So it's a double-edged sword, but to get the right people, you have to do that. Um, what kind of processes do you go through as far as because everybody today gives some type of a test, whether it's a caliper test or something along those lines? And what kind of processes do you use as far as that onboarding? Do you use certain tests at all to onboard people?
So as far as after they're hired, or do you mean like during the
During
interview
the
process?
process. Yeah, during the process. Yeah. During the
Yeah, so one company I was a part of actually ended up having to outlaw, so to speak. They used to have like a metric test that they would do, and they'd make sure that people knew how to use like a measuring tape and could do basic math and some of those sort of things. So they put them through those assessments during the interview process. And then due to some legal concerns, we had to drop that, which also
Really?
made it more difficult because you noticed that along the way, right? Like not being able to test people so they know that they can understand those measuring tools and those things like that caused a lot more of quality issues down the road. And a lot more training that had to be done to try and get them to be up to par to be able to do the job. So that's been an issue, but ones that we have had success with being able to do is a lot of the situational based, what would you do in this situation? Tell us about, past experience because we have a lot of challenges, with X, Y, Z. So being able to see if they can pull from their experience, or if they can't, what would they do in that situation, and see if their navigational tools on par with our company really helps.
Okay. Yeah, is that because I find all my clients that give some type of a test, and it's funny you say that you ran into trouble with that one test as far as I guess legally you couldn't give it. I mean, was it because they actually had to perform tasks to do it, like measure still or get up on a site to do something, or what was illegal about
It was interesting because we asked that question and we didn't get a whole lot of clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which was a little interesting, but what we could pull from it was basically it wasn't fair, which didn't make sense because in order to be successful for the position, you have to know how to do these things. So,
yeah. It's funny because I asked that for a question for a reason because, again, every one of my clients gives some type of test, and some tests are just basic aptitude tests to figure out, can you do certain things, and a lot of tests like a caliper test are designed to find, strengths and weaknesses to find out where, if the person has got strength in one field, you put them in that, or if they have some weaknesses, that's where you need to train them on that kind of stuff. And those tests usually are fairly accurate. But then there's there's some other tests that I don't think so. From what I'm told from a lot of candidates too, they're not fair because they have nothing to do with what your job function is going to be, and it is not fair. And I've always thought that there's got to be some legality about that. Got to be something legally about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. If you can't show that there's a direct correlation, why are you giving the test? And then that can lead to discrimination issues and a whole other breadth of, you don't want to get into.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, listen, I have a client who wants to give a test, I give a test, and that's fine. I'm support it, but I always thought that in the back of my head. There's got to be. It's the right person fails this test. They're not going to be. All of a sudden, you're gonna hear about it. So
right.
So what is the number one goal, or you're looking to accomplish, within the next couple of years within your role, or with anything? Is there anything that you're looking to do, or Joe-One's looking to do, or what do you see out there as regards to hiring processes and things like that?
Yeah, I would say, well, I truly love what I do. I love the new experiences and new opportunities that have come my way. So I'm open to whatever crosses my path. That being said, I'm always looking for new ways to have the greatest impact on an organization. So for me, the building industry is ever changing and continuing to grow. So if I was given the opportunity to spend more time in the change management realm, that would be extremely beneficial for me to be able to have the greatest impact on future organizations. So because of the economy and the world we live in today, everything is ever changing. So you've got to be able to adapt and be able to meet customer needs in new ways all the time. So if an organization changes and they do that correctly, it can have a significant positive impact on the organization and help them prosper beyond their wildest dreams. But if it's not done correctly, it can wreak havoc, for the whole future health of the organization. So to me, is there a better way to try and have a positive impact?
Right.
For me, no. So that would be ideal.
I would imagine, and I would imagine too, with different generations, you're dealing with different types of candidates, different types of employees, and different types of attitudes, and you have to be able to adjust to that.
Right. So being able to how to train, the generations that are looking to retire or the ones that have zero work experience and everything in between is very difficult.
It's got to be, and just the values and things different, and it's and I would think now different parts of the country that you're seeing different things. You see different things too. Yeah, for example, I'm doing a couple searches in Texas right now, and I'm doing a couple searches in the Northeast, and I'm from the Northeast, so I can speak to it. It's a lot different, working with people in Texas than it is in the Northeast. People in Texas will call you back. Oh, that's great. I want. Whereas people, what do you want? What do you want? What do you need? Tell me the salary first. Who the company is first. It's totally different. If somebody in Texas asks you what the salary is, I can't tell you that. Okay, that's fine. I'll call you tomorrow. It's Northeast. Forget. I don't want to talk to you. It's totally different. So
text me or send me an email.
Exactly. So it's definitely challenging. If you had to give any advice or any lessons you learned to somebody coming into a position such as yours, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would have to say, this sounds a little bit cheesy, but it goes back to, you're going to be the most successful if you're doing what you love to do. So getting into a particular area of this role or any role that you really enjoy, you're never going to work a day in your life. I've been a part of organizations that I absolutely love, and I'm sure you can speak to this as well. Jobs that you love, you enjoy going to work, you get excited, you're all for the organization and helping them achieve their dreams. And when it's the opposite, it makes it very hard to get in the door. So figuring out what you really love to do and doing it is going to be the best key for you to start off, in being successful.
That's great advice for in any type of roles. That's I agree with the same philosophy. Both my children, I said, you got to find something you love because you'll never work a day in your life if you do. So that's important.
That's exactly it.